Reto Leder is a seasoned leader in global event strategy and the CEO of Switzerland's renowned convention centre, Trafo Baden. With over 20 years' experience at the helm of transformative business events, Reto has become a leading voice in reimagining what success looks like, from immediate logistics to long-term legacy. At Trafo Baden, Reto oversees more than 600 events each year. But what sets him apart is his belief that events should never end when the last guest leaves the room. He champions legacy-focused experiences instead, where community engagement, sustainability, and storytelling shape meaningful impact. He's also the founder of the Swiss Admin Professional Forum, an online community born out of a desire to ensure events create connection beyond a single moment in time. Today, he's here to help us think bigger, plan smarter, and lead events with purpose. Please give a very warm welcome to Reto Leder. Reto, how wonderful to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so looking forward to talking to you about this topic. It's a really interesting one.
Hey, Lucy. Thanks for having me back. Great to be here again.
Good. I'm so delighted. Now, listen, I wanted to start by talking to you about the fact that as CEO of Trafo Baden, you've obviously been involved in a huge range of transformative events. So how are you defining legacy within the context of events, and why do you think it's such an important topic this year?
Well, I think, or I view legacy as the lasting impact and influence that an event leaves on individuals, communities, and organizations, and it essentially encompasses the values, the memories, and that persist long after the event has concluded. So legacy is about what we choose to carry forward, the lessons we've learned, the connections we've made, and the positive outcomes we have achieved. And so this year, I believe discussing legacy is particularly important because we are witnessing a paradigm shift in how events are conceptualized and executed. So in a world increasingly focused on sustainability, on social responsibility, community engagement, we have to consider how our events can contribute to both immediate experiences and long-term benefits for attendees and for the communities on larger scales. So by focusing on legacy, we can ensure that our events not only fulfill immediate goals, but also foster a sense of continuity, inclusivity, and inspiration that resonates with attendees and stakeholders alike. So this broader perspective will help us create more meaningful and more memorable experience that align with our values and aspirations as a community and as an organization.
Sense. And as an assistant, it shouldn't therefore just be thinking about, well, we need this people and we need this space and we need to feed them. It's about thinking what we're wanting them to take away and what the audience should be feeling when they leave and how that leaves a lasting impression when they get back to their places of work. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I mean, to put it simple, it's we have to make sure that an event doesn't just stop when people leave the room. Okay, so there has to be something more in that, because I mean, if you just take the entire work that is behind organizing an event, all the resources that go into planning and executing an event, it's really just a shame if that goes to waste. If we as an organizer have a too narrow a view of what an event can achieve and what it can contribute in the long term to a community.
For sure. And Trafo, I know that you have played a key role in shaping the way that the venue's reputation has developed as a space for innovation and engagement. I love Trafo. It's like 20 blank canvases that you can do anything that you want with. And you're really great at helping the organisers to imagine how that space can be used. So how does the concept of legacy really influence the way that you're planning and executing events there?
Well, at our convention center, the concept of legacy does play a very critical role in shaping our approach to organizing and executing an event. Mind you, we don't organize too many events ourselves. I mean, I would say 90% of the events happening at Trafo, and that's around 600 a year, are done by outside customers. But we obviously have an important role, or our team has an important role in making sure that our customers, can create the best attendee experience possible, and by extension also to create that legacy and have an impact as they go along in planning the event. So we aim to help our customers create experience that not only resonate with attendees in the moment, but leave a lasting impact on the community and the wider cultural landscape.
You've seen that firsthand. And yes, you're absolutely correct that, of course, people are coming in and they've got their own events and they're booking the space. But it is such a wonderful revelation to find an organisation that is helping you to put on the event, to get to a venue where they have suggestions, when they have insight as to what worked for other organisations, and where they're not scared to step forward and do that rather than taking the least line of resistance.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. It's about cooperation, I mean, this can only work if the location where the event takes place really, plays an active role in working hand in hand together with the organizer, the external one, to make sure that really, every piece of the puzzle is in its right place.
For sure. And of course, we have high 80s% of assistants who are now organising events, and for many of them they're organising so many that it's very easy just to get into that plug and play mindset. So I'd be really interested to know from you, for assistants that are involved in event planning and execution, what strategies can they use to ensure that events they organise leave a lasting impression and an impact on the wider audience?
Right. Well, and I agree with the numbers. I mean, we have at least 70% of our core customer groups are assistants, of different companies, different industries, and so on. So yes, they obviously they do play a very important role in organizing events. I think that the most important point is to understand your audience. You have to research their needs and their preferences. All of this, obviously, after you have arrived at a conclusion about why your event happens in the first place. This famous raison d'être, the reason of being. This is point number one in any event. But once you have solved that question, I do think it's defining the right audience and then understanding that audience. So content at an event has to be tailored to a specific audience. There's no point in creating content and hope that the audience will somehow fit with the content. It's really the other way around, right? Then there's the creating a strong and consequent theme and message. Okay, so you need a consistent branding from the very first email or flyer that goes out where you start inviting into the event to the very last email after the event, the question and everything. So there has to be a really consistent message, and that message ideally already includes part of what the legacy of the event is. Okay, because it's not just we launch a new product, period. It's we launch a new product because we want to improve this and this and this. Okay, so it's the event branding, it's the messaging that goes with it that is of utmost importance to make sure that people from the get-go understand, this is not just yet another event I'm going to. This is an event that's going to leave a lasting impression. Okay, then of course it's the quality of speakers, and that is an issue that I do see a lot of people struggle with. Okay, it's easy to find high-profile speakers who just because they're well known, they may be celebrity, they may have like a magnet function, but just because you're a high profile, it doesn't mean you're high quality. That's just not the same. Okay, I've seen so many people up on stage who, no doubt, they have so much to say and so much to share, but nobody thought about whether they would be actually able to deliver that message in the best way possible. One of the last examples I saw is a very famous and successful entrepreneur here in Switzerland. Yeah, I believe you have a similar show called The Lion's Den or something like that.
Yes,
Right.
yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think
Dragon's
it's
Den.
called the Shark's Tank or something like that. It's called here, I believe. And so he's one of those investors on there. Now, this guy has really created an empire out of nothing. But he's probably the most introverted person I've ever met. So if you put that guy on the stage and tell him to make a presentation using a PowerPoint, God forbid, it's just not going to work. Okay, you're going to lose the audience. And so I believe it's so important that with every speaker that you have in mind that you want to bring on stage, you really have to, take a step back and think about or research that person and see, have they done other presentations? Is a frontal approach the right one, or should it be an interview? A lot of people just feel so much more comfortable when somebody's interviewing them, rather than having to stand in front of an audience and kind of, freehand speeching and, accompanied by a PowerPoint. So it's, again, high profile is not high quality. Choose the right speakers, make sure that they can deliver, or that they're given the right platform to deliver the message that they want to deliver. And of course, interactive actions are always good. We do see that here as a trend, that it's less and less just one speaker after the other presenting keynote messages or keynote presentations. One or two, yes, but then there should be some kind of interactive, if not even fun element to it. I see more and more companies that opt for this town hall kind of format, where we really engage the entire audience, and the CEO of the company maybe or whoever is presenting goes out into the audience and asks questions directly and engages in a conversation. I do believe that this leaves a much more lasting impression. At the end of the day, when you sum it up, it's not about handing out giveaways. It's about taking home takeaways. And you will have many more of those if the interaction is right, if the interaction is good, and if the message coming from the stage is transmitted in a way that everybody feels good with.
Interesting. It's very much the outcomes as opposed to the outputs, isn't it? And I think for most assistants, when I'm teaching them project management anyway, we start off with saying you need to understand your event. So that why that you were talking about, then you plan it, then from the planning you implement it, and then you complete it. And the completion piece is the dotting the I's and crossing the T's and completing budgets and making sure the feedback is what you want and all that stuff. They are absolutely brilliant, the assistants that I train, at the planning bit and the implementation bit. That's the bit they usually do as assistants. But the pieces that are the understanding bit, even when I have said to them when I'm training them, don't worry about, just those two middle bits. You really need to concentrate on the why, and you need to concentrate on the completion bits, because that's the difference between being a project manager and being an assistant. They still miss the why bit, and more often than not I use it as a lesson that they get to the end and they've designed an event that is entirely different to the one that I wanted them to design, and hopefully they then go away with thinking, oh, okay, I've got a lesson from that. I now know that I do need to ask the why, otherwise I could get it horribly wrong.
Right, absolutely. Fully agree. Another point to really keep in mind is the short-term focus versus long-term focus. A lot of event organizers, they concentrate solely on the immediate success of the event rather than of its long-term impact. And that is the essence of legacy and impact strategies when it comes to organizing event. So a possible solution to that might be that you try to shift the mindset to think long-term. Okay, implement post-event evaluations, maybe even set up post-event follow-up calls, with one or several of the speakers, where people can dial in and ask follow-up questions. Because the fact is that when you listen to all sorts of different people during the day, you go home with your head full with new ideas, with impulses, with inspiration, everything. You don't actually have time to process and digest that while you are still at the event. No, no, it's like when you're sitting in an airplane. I've flown many, many, many miles in my life. I've never once experienced that somebody would ask me for my opinion about the flight while I'm still on the flight. They would do that afterwards because I need to have a chance to actually, settle down, put everything a bit into perspective and then make an opinion about how I like the whole experience or not. And with events, it's exactly the same. So I think it could be interesting to have some either follow up virtual events or even create a spin-off from an event and say, okay, let's gather ideas at the event itself. What do you think could come of this? And then we create yet another event coming out of this one. Okay.
I love that. So we've talked about what legacy looks like, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing that event organisers are coming up against when it comes to legacy on events?
Well, apart from the ones I just mentioned, I think it's where we could all improve a lot, I think, is in the tracking and reporting. At the end of the day, you need to be able to somehow, get a grasp of how well it went. What are the key points to measure during the event. Those kind of things. You have to develop a strategy for data collection, for instance. You have to define the metrics that you want to track attendance, economic impact, the community involvement, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of work involved if you go into legacy and impact strategies, but I do think it's absolutely worthwhile because you will end up with so much information and data and so much insight that will help you make the next event even so much better than the last one.
For sure. Okay, so what do you think the role is that community plays, community engagement in creating an event legacy? How are you fostering connections that extend beyond the event itself?
I think I'll best illustrate that with an example. We did here. We have, like many towns, that we have a Rotary Club here, a local one. And the one we have here in Baden, they organize every 2 years a charity event where they raise money, which they then use to support a specific, charitable organization in the area. It's always a different one. And so coming out of COVID, there have been so many cases of people who have, mental health issues and stuff like that. And so the last time they decided to donate the money to an organization that helps people with mental health problems find their way back into work life. And so the way they do that, they have this, like it's called like a protected workshop, we call it here in Switzerland, where you have like in that case they produce different types of food items. Okay, they make chocolates, they make cookies, they make pasta, they make all sorts of things, where their clients, as they call them, would be actively engaged or involved in producing those things. And so the Rotary Club had a project with that organization to develop a new food item. It turned out to be a Powerball type of thing. And rather than just handing them a check after the event and say, no, here you have 20,000-30,000 bucks, go do something good with it. The whole plan from the start was to let the community that will participate at the charity event in the process of that new product being invented. And that started like 10 months before the event. Okay. And so the outcome was that when the charity event happened, the product had already been developed, it had been produced, it had been packaged and everything. And the people at the event were actually able to taste what the money that they were donating that evening had already pre-financed. Okay.
What a fantastic idea.
And so after the event, the product went into sale in different points of sales across the city. Companies can buy them as giveaways and have it branded with the company logo and so on and so forth. So you had the whole process starting 10 months before the event, engaging the community with regular social media posts and everything, all the way to the event and after the event. So I think that is a really nice example of what legacy and impact can mean. So the idea was all along to make sure that the organization can continue to produce that product in a sustainable way, self-financed, but the donation, opened the door for it.
Sure. And there's also, of course, your community that you run for assistance that came off the back of you doing various events there for us, I think. But certainly your Empower Hour last year, where Peggy Vasquez and myself and Diana Brandle were there on the stage talking to assistants. And then I know you had a very successful event last night with Diana and with an executive and with an assistant. And all the while you are giving back to the profession. I love your new online community, which I have a spot on, but it's a really great example of saying, well, it isn't a one and done training event. Actually, you recognize there was a need for a community there that continued on past the event, and have expanded that. And that's very smart, I think.
Yeah, it's thank you. It really turns out to be a really interesting exercise. Again, it was the same question we posed ourselves last year when we did that event with you, Peggy and Diana. Like, what a shame would it be if we simply did that event and people went back home, and yeah, they obviously take away a lot of inspiration with them, but there has to be a way to make sure those people stay connected after the event. And yes, LinkedIn is a really good way, and I love LinkedIn and everything, but we just felt it was not enough. And so this platform, it's called the Swiss Admin Professional Forum. I think we have about 70, 80 members now on there. I know you're on there. I know Diana is on there. The Miss Moneypenny magazine here in Switzerland is on there. And there's a lot of content being shared, from events to book recommendations to insights, trends, and everything. And it's really cool to see how people who have not known each other before, they have logged onto that peer-to-peer platform, and that they use that opportunity to actually, conduct an exchange with other people, other like-minded people, and in that way create an environment that is an extension of the event itself, and it bridges the time between one event and the next one.
Yes. And also, I think it's very important to say that this isn't just a network for Swiss administrative professionals. It is a global network for people who want to connect with each other, just happening to be run from Switzerland. So we will put a link in the chat so that anybody who is attending the event feels that they would like to, they can sign up. It's certainly worth it. There's an awful lot of really in-depth content there. So
and it's free of charge. It's no membership concept. It's really just, it's supposed to be a platform where people of the admin community just have a safe place where to exchange ideas.
Yeah, lovely. Really good. Really good. It's great being involved in that. So listen then, how are we going to measure the success of an event in terms of legacy? Are there specific metrics or indicators that you think that every person who is organising an event should be tracking?
Oh, where to start? There's so much you can measure at events. Again, it's a bit a question of resources available, because every bit of data that you collect, you have to store somewhere, and then you have to do something with it. Otherwise, it's not worth collecting it. So let's be mindful of the resources needed, not just to do the actual measuring, but the actual evaluating of the data that you collect. So I think first and foremost, there is the topic of audience engagement and growth. Okay, you want to track attendance numbers. You want to maybe even track demographic diversity. Audience feedback can provide insight into how well the event resonated with the audience, and its ability to attract new participants. Then you have the cultural impact. You can assess how the event contributed to local cultural scene, including partnerships formed with local artists, for instance, organizations, schools, or the incorporation of local culture in the programming of the event. Why not? Then you have, of course, the community feedback, which you can gather before the event, you can gather feedback during the event, and you can gather it after the event. And I wouldn't leave out any one of them. It is so important to stay in touch with your audience to make sure that not only do you know if they liked the event, but also, to gather insights into how they think the event should be designed the next time. Okay. Then there's the economic impact, of course. You probably have a budget. There's all those financial parameters that you want to make sure you have them right. Then there is the topic of sustainability initiatives. Speaking of impact and legacy, sustainability plays a big role in there. You can monitor the long-term relationships that come out of that. You can measure how many new partnerships have you formed with people or companies that were at the event, and so on and so forth. There's so much to do there. Education and skills development, the media coverage, the publicity that you get. It's almost endless, yeah.
You mentioned sustainability there, and clearly it's a growing concern across the events industry. How do you incorporate sustainability practices there at Trafo Baden, and how does that contribute to the legacy of your events?
I didn't quite. You were interrupted. Sorry. Say that again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What I was saying was that it's a really growing concern, clearly, for the events industry, sustainability. So how are you incorporating sustainability practices there at Trafo Baden to make sure that there is a real legacy in terms of sustainability for your events?
Okay. Well, and you heard me say this phrase, I think, far too many times already. The only green event is one that doesn't take place. So I think it's an illusion to think that you can go full green. It just doesn't exist. Any type of event has emissions. A virtual event has emissions. A hybrid one has even larger ones, and one that takes place on site has emissions as well, simply because people are traveling from and to, or to and from the event. You have the whole food production. You have everything that happens there. AV consumes a lot of energy and so on and so forth. So I think one has to be realistic about how green an event can actually be. It should be reasonable, it should be doable, and above all, it should fit the program and not the other way around. This the same topic we talked about once, I believe, last year, about event technology, AV, and it was exactly the same thing there. AV is there to support the event, not the other way around. And it's the same thing with sustainability. Sustainability should be a how do you call it? It should be like everything covering concept that is used where it makes sense, and is left alone where it doesn't make a lot of sense. Just for example, we see this here a lot. We hear people talking all the time about, we don't want any plastic water bottles. Simple thing. Okay, so fair enough. I agree with that. However, if you have 600 people in the same room for a keynote presentation, it's a hot day out. Everybody will be wanting to drink water. If you put up water stations with glasses, it will take a very long time for everybody to help themselves to water. So this could possibly delay the whole program. Okay, maybe not the best idea. If people bring glass into a plenary room and then put it under the chairs, they may kick the glasses away. They may break. You may have injuries and so on and so forth. So, again, I'm all for glass and water fountains and everything, but again, it has to fit the program. It has to fit the event dynamic, not the other way around. So, I think it's worthwhile, sit down with everybody involved in organizing the event, also the location, because they know their spaces, and have a very candid talk about what are the expectations, what is possible, what makes sense, what is payable, and at the end of the day, out of that, create a sustainability, paper that you can even publish and say, no, this is the measures that we have taken. You can send that out together with the invitation. You can send it out after the event, but you make sure that people know what is happening, but you also tell them what is not possible. I think it's important to create awareness about what is realistic.
For sure. I would love to hear from you. I know you gave one example already, but have you got any other examples of companies that are doing amazing things with events, make sure that they've got a legacy afterwards?
Well, the first one that comes to mind right now is an organization called Advance. They were actually here last night as well, at the Empower Hour. We just became a member of that organization. They're all about gender equality in business. This is their big topic. And they celebrated the International Women's Day, I believe it was March 7th. They were here at Trafo. It was a huge event. It was hugely successful as an event. And I think they do a fantastic job in making sure that people don't just go home and think, well, nice event, that was it. But they really make sure that people keep engaging with them long after the event and until the next event. And it's really worthwhile checking them out. I think it's weadvance.ch or .com. I can look it up afterwards. It's a very interesting organization that does a great job of promoting gender equality in that case, and they really manage to keep their audience engaged all through the year, the whole time. With the way that they communicate through emails, newsletters, follow-up events, workshops that they organize. Some of the workshops, they're a product and the result of the main event, and so on and so forth. So, it's a snowball. It just keeps getting bigger.
Very interesting, and it makes total sense from a business continuity point of view as well, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, absolutely.
Excellent.
I mean, also for us, I mean, the happier that our customers are, the more likely the possibility the higher the possibility that they will come back. And so, having customers who return for an event location is sustainable.
Of course. So, I know that you have a really great vantage point, particularly as a CEO, on how events are evolving over time. You've been involved in events for a very long time. How do you see the future of legacy within events, particularly over the next 5 years, and in the context of digital transformation?
Okay. Two thoughts on that. One of them is that I believe events will evolve into ongoing learning platforms rather than one-time experiences. So with digital transformation facilitating year-round engagement, as we just talked about before, attendees will have access to recorded sessions, follow-up discussions, community interactions, and thus creating a lasting legacy of knowledge sharing and relationship building. And I do think that is a key aspect of how events should be approached in this day and age. It is all about learning. It is all about knowledge transfer. If that is not like the underlying promise of the event, why would I want to go to an event? This is imperative. And the second one, I would say, is data-driven insights, what I just mentioned before, that the legacy of events will increasingly rely on data-driven insights. Organizers will analyze attendee behavior, they will analyze feedback, they will analyze engagement metrics to continuously improve future events. Because again, the idea has to be that the next event is going to be even better than this one. And that puts some pressure on event organizers because, once you set the bar this high, you create an expectation. And next time you better exceed that expectation. And then the next time the exceeded expectation is going to be the new one, and so on and so forth. So it's for an event team, for a project team. I think this is one of the biggest challenges ever, to make sure that every event that follows is yet a bit better than the previous one.
Yeah, I think it's so much also to do with community and conversation. I think you can use events to start a conversation, but then you've got to continue the conversation. And for us as a community, I'm forever saying we want to provide the content in whichever way they want to consume it. So whether that is online, whether that's in person, whether that's reading, whether that's listening, whatever that looks like. But, particularly for the administrative profession right now, everything is changing so swiftly. And I'm sure it's in many other most other sectors as well. We're in an intense period of disruption, and if you are not disrupting, you are the disrupted. So for me,
Absolutely.
it's creating platforms where you can bring people together in whichever context that might be, so that they can share ideas for the good of the community.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Fully agree. That's how
Yeah,
it should
I
be.
think also, with everything becoming so digital, there is real value in having face-to-face connection, or indeed online connection. But the connection piece is so important, that human connection where everything is becoming so screen-centric.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've seen this now time and time again after COVID, especially, where you remember this time when during COVID everybody started talking about virtual events and hybrid. Everybody did hybrid and so on and so forth, or did mostly virtual, not hybrid, and it died down as soon as COVID was over. Yes, screen time is good and is useful and everything, but nothing replaces the face-to-face, meeting and interaction between two people. There's so much in a person's gestures and mimic and everything that you just cannot capture when you're sitting in front of a screen. And so, when I look around us, I mean, how much time we spend on screens with our cell phone and the laptop and the iPad and TV screens everywhere. No matter where you go, it's TVs, it's screens. So I think the more time we can offer people to spend away from screens, I think that already has an impact. That is giving back quality time to people, and that is an aspect I just, for my taste, I don't see enough being used in the message when events are advertised. Because it's not just come and listen to yet another expert in artificial intelligence. It's come and meet people, come and screen detox by actually interacting person to person with other people, and that is so valuable. There's no description for that, and it's not being used enough as an argument to attract people to events.
Yeah, give yourself space to evaluate and to think through what you really think and where you fit into things, as opposed to it all being part of the daily noise. I couldn't agree with you more.
Absolutely.
So I'm on to my final question, which is looking ahead. What's next for Trafo Baden in terms of events, and how do you envision continuing to build on the legacy that you have already established as an organisation?
Oh dear. I think it's all about creating awareness, in the long run. Again, we don't organize that many events ourselves. We just assist others to organize the best event and the best guest experience possible. So it's conversations like we are having now. It's creating awareness. It's showing people maybe different solutions, the different approaches to tackling a problem or a challenge in event organization. It's about engaging people on all organizational sides of an event to sit down together, have conversations about how they can make events leave a larger and better footprint. Because at the end of the day, and back to the sustainability question, it is not about compensating carbon footprint with an event. Okay, that may be a part of it. Why not? Okay, but that is not what a sustainable event is all about. And so it really should be about, having a better understanding of what kind of impact can I make with the event? What potential for leaving an impact does it have? And you can only arrive at that conclusion when you sit down with everybody involved and spin ideas and do some brainstorming.
For sure. Reto, every time I sit and talk to you, my brain starts to explode. I have worked in events for 36 years, but you always give me food for thought, and it's really inspiring talking to you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.